Fame is supposed to guarantee a second chance. But sometimes, even the most beloved star can discover that lightning doesn't strike twice. Andy Griffith was one of the most trusted, admired, and adored men on television. He had given America Mayberry, the innocent little town where Sheriff Andy Taylor kept the peace with wisdom, humor, and heart. He created a cultural safe haven in the 1960s, a place where laughter healed a nation torn by turbulence. But just a few years later, the same man who symbolized comfort would stumble into one of the most confusing, short-lived, and embarrassing failures of his career. How did Andy Griffith, the king of small-town storytelling, lose his footing so spectacularly? And why did the new Andy Griffith Show collapse before it even had a chance to breathe? This is the hidden story of ambition, pressure, and the curse of chasing past glory. Andy Griffith's beginnings were as humble as the towns he brought to life on screen. Born in Mount Airy, North Carolina, he grew up poor, with little more than his wit and his voice to carry him forward. Yet those gifts were powerful enough to change his destiny. He was shy, often self-conscious about his appearance, but he found freedom through humor. His impersonations, his storytelling, and eventually his music opened doors no one expected for a boy from the rural South. By the time television entered America's living rooms, Andy was ready. His natural warmth and comedic timing earned him a starring role in The Andy Griffith Show, which premiered in 1960. For 8 years, families gathered to watch Sheriff Andy Taylor raise his son Opie, manage the bumbling Barney Fife, and embody the best of small-town America. The series was more than entertainment. It was a balm. At a time when civil rights marches, assassinations, and Vietnam filled the headlines, Mayberry gave people a reminder of gentler times. Andy Griffith became more than an actor. He was an icon. But when the show ended in 1968, Andy faced the same terrifying question every star dreads: what comes next? He dreamed of bigger things, Hollywood films, challenging roles, a second act that would prove he wasn't just the sheriff of Mayberry. But the movie offers that came his way fizzled. His first few projects outside the show failed to make a dent, and so the man who once ruled television found himself adrift, wondering if he'd already peaked. Determined not to fade, Andy turned back to the medium that made him a star. In 1970, he took a bold leap with a new series called Headmaster. Instead of a sheriff, he would play the head of a private California school, tackling contemporary issues with more dramatic flair. It was supposed to show a different side of Andy Griffith, but it didn't. Audiences were baffled. They didn't want Andy as a stern school administrator lecturing about modern problems. They wanted warmth. They wanted laughter. They wanted Mayberry. Ratings plummeted. Critics dismissed it, and Andy himself admitted he was miserable. He later confessed that the very act of sitting on the set as a headmaster made him feel uneasy, like a schoolboy again, nervous, out of place, desperate to hide behind someone taller. The failure cut deep, but Andy wasn't ready to give up. He knew comedy was his strength, and he knew America still loved him. If Headmaster didn't work, maybe something more familiar would. And so, in early 1971, the new Andy Griffith Show was born. It was a rushed creation, pulled together in less than a month, with writers, producers, and cast scrambling to deliver something that could both honor the past and feel fresh. This time, Andy wouldn't be Sheriff Andy Taylor. He would be Andy Sawyer, the mayor of a small North Carolina town. The role, he told newspapers, felt comfortable. It felt natural. Maybe he believed it was his way back. To lure fans, producers brought in familiar faces from the original Mayberry: Don Knotts, George Lindsay, Paul Hartman. Some reprised their old characters, others played brand new ones. And that's where the confusion began. Viewers couldn't make sense of it. One week, a familiar face would show up exactly as they remembered. The next, that same actor would appear in a completely different role, standing beside Andy as though Mayberry had never existed. It blurred the line between old and new in the worst way. Was this a sequel, a reboot, a completely different show? No one knew. Critics were merciless. They called it recycled, lazy and desperate. Fans, meanwhile, felt betrayed. They wanted to step back into the cozy world they'd left behind. Instead, they got a strange echo of it, distorted and awkward. And behind the scenes, Andy felt the pressure mounting. He had promised himself and his audience that comedy was his gift, that he would never again stray too far from what made him beloved. But now that promise seemed broken. The timing couldn't have been worse. CBS, the very network airing the show, was in the middle of its infamous rural purge, a sweeping decision to cancel series that were deemed too small-town, too old-fashioned, the very essence of Andy Griffith's charm was suddenly considered outdated. Executives wanted youth, cities and edge. They wanted something Andy couldn't deliver. Within just 10 episodes, the show was gone, cancelled, erased. Barely a blip in television history. For Andy Griffith, the failure stung like a wound that never fully healed. He rarely spoke of the new Andy Griffith Show afterward. In one interview years later, he dismissed it in a single sentence. It didn't go anywhere. But the silence around it told its own story. Because here was the man who had once carried an entire network on his back. A man whose voice and presence comforted millions. And yet, when he tried to recapture that magic, it slipped away like smoke. It was a turning point in his career. A reminder that fame is fragile, and nostalgia can be a trap. Andy Griffith eventually recovered. He found success again in projects like Matlock, where he redefined himself for a new generation. He proved that even after humiliation, reinvention was possible. But the ghost of the new Andy Griffith Show lingered, a cautionary tale about the danger of trying to repeat the past. The legacy of Andy Griffith is secure. He remains the symbol of Mayberry, the father figure of a golden television age, and a legend whose voice still echoes in reruns across the world. But hidden beneath that legacy is the short-lived misstep that almost derailed him, a show that promised everything and delivered nothing. It's a reminder that even the brightest stars can stumble, that success is never guaranteed, no matter how beloved you are, and that sometimes the hardest truth of all is this: the past cannot always be reborn. Andy Griffith gave America laughter, warmth, and hope. He didn't just play a small-town hero, he became one. And though the new Andy Griffith Show vanished, his place in history never did. What part of Andy Griffith's journey shocked you the most? Was it his struggle to move beyond Mayberry, or the way one of television's biggest legends faced failure so quickly? Let us know in the comments below. And if you thought this story was powerful, wait until you see what happened to another TV star whose career ended with a scandal no one saw coming.